And we are live for another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside as always by my co-host Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, it's been a couple days since we finally got revealed the last top 25 college football playoff poll. That poll was released on Saturday afternoon. So by now, I'm sure a lot of people know what those rankings are. But if you haven't, been living under a rock, no offense, we will break down those rankings here tonight while also breaking down what happened this past weekend in the conference championship week. And then we'll be breaking down the first round matchups as well as some other New Year's Six bowl games that are happening this college football bowl season. But Johnson, we are finally here. We are down to the final 12 teams in terms of trying to compete for a national championship, and it took a very interesting road to get here. Let's just say that there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this top 25 poll.
Yeah, it is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I think this is going to lead to some changes in the CFP for sure. Something tells me a 16 team playoff is on the horizon.
Maybe. I mean, I would love to do. You know what I would love instead? It would make even more sense. The way you do the 16 team uh, playoff is, I guess you could just straight get rid of the first round bye because you've seen teams complain about that first round bye, saying it's not
Hmm.
it's like throwing off their mojo, and they're getting out of practice, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
look what happened to Oregon last year. Obviously, that's a big example considering they took the time off and then they got destroyed by Ohio State in the second round.
Yeah, so it's fair, it's valid criticism, and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the future. But for now, let's go into the championship weekend recap because you start off with your winning in team in the beginning of the year, your group of five winner, which is James Madison. The defense held on, and they
Yeah,
beat Troy in the Sun Belt Championship. So you got one of your five teams right. So, or one of your 12, I should say.
yeah.
So let's break it down.
Yeah, James Madison's defense was clutch in this game against Troy. They really stepped it up. 7 sacks, I believe, they had in total in this game. They sealed it with a sack, fumble, scoop, and score towards the end to get them that double digit win. They did not cover in that game, but that's besides the point. They could care less. They win that game. It would set up then what happened on Saturday for them. They didn't clinch a spot in the CFP just yet, but it put them in a position to be in a position, which is all you could ask for. So they get the Sun Belt title done and win that. Also, that same night, you saw Tulane matching up with North Texas in the AAC championship game. Tulane pretty much dominated this game from start to finish. They win the AAC. That was an aforementioned win-in scenario. That was going to be the official Group of Five winner going into the college football playoff. So Tulane got the job done. I was just a year early on them, Johnson. I thought last year was the year that they could make the Group of Five and the CFP, but it's this year that they make it. So maybe a little bit of sweet justice for me that they were able to make it this year too. So Tulane gets their spot in the CFP. But as we mentioned with James Madison, the only way they could have made it into the CFP was if Duke was able to beat Virginia in the ACC championship game. And to credit this game for about 3 quarters was not really like high stakes at the time. It was kind of back and forth, but nothing like of note. The fourth quarter is when everything started to pick up. Duke gets has a lead late. They have a chance to ice the game, but they give Virginia just enough time. They go down the field. I think it was 92 yards. I think they went down the field. They got the game tying touchdown with 20 seconds left to send it to overtime. Virginia starts overtime with a field goal, but they allow a touchdown after Duke converts a 4th and 2. Then the next play or 2 plays later, they get the game winning touchdown to clinch the ACC championship. So with Duke winning the ACC title, that would put James Madison into the college football playoff as they are the next highest ranked conference champion going into the CFP. So we have 2 Group of 5 teams into the CFP this season. That's where a lot of the controversy is coming from, as well as uh, a certain team getting knocked out of the polls because of head to head and their strength of record and strength of resume. So, a lot to break down into terms of those 3 matchups. Quickly, the other 2 matchups because of what happened. Texas Tech rolls past BYU. They win their first conference championship since 1955. A great win for the Red Raiders. Georgia routes Alabama in the SEC championship game. They get their first win against Alabama since winning the national championship game in 2022. So a very long time for Georgia trying to get that monkey off their back and knock off the Tide. And then finally, the big game of the week was obviously number 2 Indiana, number 1 Ohio State. And Indiana stuns the entire college football world. They knock off the Buckeyes 13-10 in this game. The Buckeyes' red zone offense was really bad. They had 4 possessions inside of the red zone. They only scored 1 time in those 4 possessions, and they had a chance to tie the game late with about 2:30 left in the game. They missed a 27-yard field goal. Indiana would run out the clock and get the job done. They win their first Big Ten championship since 1945, and because of that win, Johnson, they will be the number 1 overall team, the number 1 overall seed going to this college football playoff.
Hard to believe that Indiana Kirk Cignetti has put in a lot of work, and he just pulled off a real-life college football rebuild.
Right.
This was they won 5 combined games before he got here.
If you're a James Madison fan, you have to be loving this because your former head coach has got the team, has got his new team as the number 1 team in the country, and your new coach, although he's going to be leaving for UCLA at the end of the year, he's got you in the CFP. So regardless, you've got it into the CFP, and you have another head coach as well in the CFP. So yeah, it's incredible what Cignetti has done. He's taken arguably one of the worst college football teams record-wise in NCAA history, and now has gotten them to national rank status, back-to-back CFP appearances, and now a Big Ten championship and the number 1 overall seed. So the path goes through them right now in this college football playoff. But it's a really fun story to talk about what Cignetti has done for this program over these last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and he's won everywhere he goes. He won when he started his career, even at D2 IUP, which is in central Pennsylvania, I believe. Or is it in Pennsylvania? Right. Yeah, it's in Indiana, Pennsylvania, believe it or not. So how ironic. Then he went to Elon, won there. James Madison, you know the story. He turned the Dukes into, I don't want to say a national powerhouse, but during the transition era where they went from FBS to FCS,
exactly,
or FCS to FBS, excuse me.
Yep.
He won at the lower level of Division I football, and then he won immediately as soon as they joined the Sun Belt Conference, and now he goes to Indiana, he wins again. This is a guy who has 37 losses over his last 15 years as a head coach.
Yeah.
So a bad year for him.
They wanted him.
On average, you can get 2 to 3 losses a year of this guy. A really bad year, 4 losses.
Yeah.
5 losses. So he has set them up that he has the donor and the donor base and the fan base excited. So Indiana is back with not only college football, but college basketball too, with very recent success there too. I mean, listen, I know they're not top 25. They're kind of on the the fringe, call it. But yeah, I mean the Indiana basketball powerhouse. I would have never thought it in a million years. I would have thought that the Hoosiers would have come back in basketball, but not football. But here we are.
Yeah, it's a crazy time, and they look to have the Heisman Trophy winner too. With all that being said, too, and Fernando Mendoza, it looked at first that then maybe with the way that game was started against Ohio State, that was going to give Diego Pavia and Jeremiah Love more opportunities to win it without even playing that weekend, and instead, Mendoza has a really strong second half, made some really impressive throws against one of the best, if not the best, defense in the entire country in Ohio State. And it looks like he's going to win the Heisman Trophy for this team. And talk about what they did to get him. I mean, a transfer from California last season, and he's got this team 13-0. They're going to be going into the college football playoff, of course. Big Ten champion, number 1 seed. Sky's the limit right now for this team. Everything is on the table for them, and I don't want to say they're playing with house money, but I mean, they would like to win a national championship because obviously last year ended very quickly with that loss to Notre Dame. So they're hoping to avoid that again this season, especially after what happened with, as I mentioned earlier on, what happened with Oregon, who was the number one overall seed last year, and they got bounced by Ohio State in the second round. So they are trying to avoid that this season. They do have an interesting matchup in the second round, depending on who will win that first matchup with the 9 and 8 seed, which will break down in just a little bit. But other than that, Johnson, the rest of that top 10 following that, you have Ohio State, the number 2 team in the country. So they do fall down a spot despite the loss. Kind of expected that. The only team I think that would have given them a threat to be number 2 is Georgia. Georgia, speaking of them, is the number 3 team. And Texas Tech rounds it out at number 4. So those 4 teams will have a bye going into the college football playoff. They will not have to play in the first round of the CFP. And then we break down the matchups for the CFP. And they're very interesting ones. You start off with the 5-12 matchup, Oregon taking on 12th seed James Madison. As I mentioned, James Madison, the last conference championship, highest ranked conference championship winner. So they get that 12 seed. Tulane, or I should say, they get that group of 5 seed, I guess, however you want to point it out. Tulane becomes the 11th seed with that. They'll take on 6th seed Ole Miss in a rematch of a game that those two teams played earlier on in the season. So we'll see how that matchup goes. 7 seed Texas A&M will take on 10 seed Miami. So before we go into the final matchup, a lot of the controversy was with, of course, Miami not playing that this past weekend, not in the ACC championship game. They jump up 2 spots with the BYU loss, but they got the aforementioned head-to-head tiebreaker with Notre Dame, so that put them into the CFP. And the Irish undoubtedly, understandably upset by this because they were ranked ahead of Miami the entirety of the season since Miami lost those games to Louisville and SMU. And they did not lose a game ever since they lost that last game to Texas A&M. But the head-to-head proved to be the difference maker. And they also did not move Alabama down despite losing badly to Georgia because they played an extra game in the conference championship. So the Irish missed the CFP after making the national championship game last year. And I don't really blame them for doing this, but they take themselves out of it competing in a bowl game this season. So they end the year number 11 in the country and 10-2 on the season.
So I have a bunch to say here, and I don't know where you want me to start, Nick, but
yeah,
I guess I'll start with Alabama and Notre Dame. Why Alabama did not move down a spot, and because previously every other conference champion that has historically lost the championship game, right? So if you're in the conference championship and you lost the game, right, you've always moved down. This did not happen with Alabama this year. So
yeah,
would have made more sense if it was A&M Alabama and Miami Oklahoma. Would that made more sense?
I think the only reason they didn't move Bama down to 10 is because they put Miami there at 10. And I think also Bama's strength of resume helped them in this case because they had beaten teams that are ranked, in the top 25 right now. Vanderbilt being the best win. I shouldn't say Vanderbilt. Georgia being, of course, their best win of the season. And they also have wins against Vanderbilt, as I just mentioned before. But I think the only reason they didn't move him down is because they're trying to, prevent a further, precedent of, well, why should we compete in the conference championship week? Because it's only going to hurt us if we compete in the conference championship. Because look what happened to BYU. They fell down after getting beat down by Texas Tech. Bama probably should have been knocked down, but I think the committee didn't want to do it to 2 teams, so they decided, okay, let's just do it to 1 team. Could that be biased towards Bama? Maybe. I don't know. We know how corrupt the NCAA can be sometimes. And Miami, to their credit, didn't have to play in a conference championship game this week. And they got to move up 2 spots to get into the CFP despite that happening. So, yeah, all of it was just a very weird situation and just weird circumstances. Because, again, the NCAA knew what they were doing at the end of the day because you could tell the writing was on the wall, in my opinion, that Miami was going to move up against Notre Dame because of that head-to-head. The only way it wasn't going to happen is if BYU won the Big 12 championship. I think that was the only way Miami would not have made it into the CFP. But at the end of the day, that's not the case.
Yeah, so let's. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, and so I think that's one of the reason why I don't think Alabama moved down at all. Was because they judged them against Miami and Notre Dame, and they judged the same 12 games that everyone played. So the way I looked at it is it was extra credit on your homework assignment, right? So if you did extra credit when you were a kid,
Yeah.
if you got it right, that's great. You got extra points. If you got it wrong, they didn't take points off your total test, right? They didn't
Yeah.
take points off your total homework assignment, whatever it was for. So that's the way. It could only help them, not hurt them. That's why they judged them. And I firmly believe if Notre Dame was in a conference and they were in a conference championship, even if they were in the Sun Belt, I'm gonna make this up. Let's say they were in the MAC.
No, I
right?
mean, of course, they're any conference that they'd be one of the highest ranked
They'd be in.
conference champions. Yeah, 100%.
They'd be in. They'd be in, and it's kind of crazy, but if I'm Notre Dame, and because obviously this is gonna sound really funny, but it's really petty too. Did you know that the ACC network replayed Miami's game over Notre Dame like 18 times?
Yep.
That weekend?
Yep.
It's hilariously petty, but I kind of agree with it. So
yeah,
the AD of Notre Dame has said that the ACC has done permanent damage to their relationship. And if I'm Notre Dame,
Notre Dame's going to be moving out of the ACC soon. It's gonna happen.
I think Notre Dame, if you really want to stay true independent in football, what you have to do is move to the Big East. It's not like they don't have a Midwest presence right now. You have Butler there. You have Creighton there. You have Marquette. So you got the Midwest. You got DePaul. It's the Midwest presence. They're all Catholic
they already have a
schools
relationship with
Butler.
the Big East before, so
they do. They have and they're gonna stay a true independent. It's their college basketball team is decent again. Micah Shrewsbury's doing a good job there, and that's gonna be their second biggest bread and butter, which cannot be independent nowadays. You cannot schedule 30 independent college basketball games. That's crazy. It's not like it's football. So if you guys stay independent, go to the Big East and say, hey, if I'm going to the Big East, I want some other teams with me to strengthen the Midwest. And sure, grab Dayton, grab St. Louis, and then you have 7 teams in the Midwest and you have 7 teams on the East Coast. And it's a perfectly balanced conference. That's how I would do it if I'm Notre Dame. Second thing I want to say about Notre Dame is I think if that's the route they're going to go, instead of this partnering schedule with the ACC, because clearly the games they're getting do not mean much, right? So, like, no offense, Nick, they're playing Qs. That's not meaning anything.
Nothing.
Partner with the SEC. Partner with the SEC, because even the bottom teams of the SEC mean a lot more than the bottom teams in the ACC. They mean an infinite more. If
look
Notre
how many
Dame
SEC
had wins over, let's say, LSU, or if they had wins over Missouri, or if they had a win over Kentucky or Tennessee, rather than beating the best, what was it, at Pittsburgh and SMU, are those the best 2 non-conference wins for them in the ACC?
For Notre Dame, you talking about?
Yeah,
their best non-conference wins. You talk about non-ACC teams or like
just ACC teams? Just ACC teams.
I don't know if they played SMU this year. I know they played Pitt.
I don't know. Is it Illinois? Then am I thinking of? Am I thinking of Illinois?
No, I'll look at the schedule in a second. I was looking.
What orange team am I thinking of?
Despite Syracuse, I don't know. Let me see real quick. I was about to look up something. I forgot what
conference. It was USC. It was USC. I don't know why I got them confused.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. USC.
It's a big.
USC and Pitt was their best wins of the season.
But yeah, okay. But looking at the ACC teams they played, right?
Yes.
North Carolina State.
Not good.
BC.
Boston College and Syracuse alone were the worst 2 teams in the ACC. And Stanford
they also played Stanford. So they played the basement of the ACC in Pittsburgh.
And to be fair to them, they have rivalry games with Boston College and Stanford. I guess that's the only reason they have those 2 games. But
I'd get rid of them.
Yeah. Well,
I would honestly, if I'm Notre Dame, I would get rid of them.
So here's what's going to happen now. And I think this is another precedent that's going to be troubling, is that they might get to the point where why would they schedule games like they did against Miami and Texas A&M? They might just schedule...
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, they might just schedule, whatever Power 5 team that's not ranked and just do that, and that's fine.
But this set a precedent that the games matter. The game early in the season, week 2 of the season, week 1 in the season, they matter. They matter. So I'm glad that they use that as the as the measuring stick. Because if they hadn't done that, then I would have seen those crazy non-conference games that you see getting scheduled. Oh yeah, we're doing a home and a home in 4 years from now, and it's going to be, I'm making this up. Oh yeah, it's going to be Alabama and Michigan 4 years from now. We do home and home. You're not getting those anymore.
Yeah, Bama took off a couple games in the 27 schedule. I forgot who the teams were, but it was like South Florida and Cincinnati. Like nothing like crazy, but they took them off the schedule.
Because the games matter.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they did that. And if I'm Notre Dame, hey, move out of the ACC. It's clearly not working out. Go back to the Big East. If you're gonna stay, this is only if you're staying independent in football.
Right. If you're saying
go back
football,
go back to the Big East for every other sport, and stay independent in football and have a schedule. And with your football, have a scheduling relationship with the SEC, like you have with the ACC now. But if you want to actually join a conference, just join the Big Ten. It's.
Yeah.
I know Michigan blocked them 100 years ago. It's not gonna happen now. It's not gonna happen.
Speaking of Michigan, we'll talk about them in a little bit later on in the show too. They've got a whirlwind of a storm coming right now in Ann Arbor. But the final matchup in the first round of the CFP, the 8-9 matchup, Oklahoma and Alabama. So that is the first round matchups as well as the top 4 seats in the college football playoff. So it should be an interesting playoff. People I think are a little bit up and down about the CFP. Just because of the 2 group of 5 teams playing this year. And of course, we already saw what happened earlier in the season with Tulane and Ole Miss. So you have that rematch in the first round. You have a rematch between Oklahoma and Alabama in the first round. And let's say if Ole Miss gets past Tulane, then they would get a second round rematch with Georgia, which is another matchup we saw earlier on this season, of course. So there's a potential for a lot of rematches in this college football playoff, of course. And we'll see realistically what happens at the end of the day with those teams and how far they can get. We'll make our predictions on those games later on the show. Any final thoughts, Johnson, before we go into some coaching news here on the show?
Yeah, just talk about the playoff bracket. I think it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. I think all these games are going to be great, and I don't think there's a single drag. I mean, the only thing I will say is, imagine if you had the old format, because if you had the old format, Ohio State would have been like in playing.
Ohio State would have been the 5
James
seed.
Madison.
Yeah, they would have played James Madison. Yeah,
and then in the next round they would have played someone like they would have played Tulane.
They would have played. So if
they would have played Tulane.
I'm trying to think. It would have been Indiana, Georgia, Texas Tech would have been the top 3 conference champions.
Yeah, and then
it would have been Tulane. It would have been Tulane. Yeah, that's crazy.
And could you imagine the path?
Really bad.
People would have been up in arms. Like, are you kidding me? You're gonna play James Madison, and then your reward for losing was James Madison, Tulane. Yeah. You have pretty much a bye to the semifinals. That would have been crazy. So they did get the format right this time. The top 4 teams all should get seeded.
I like the new format, but I guarantee you, because of the 2 group of 5s getting in, and teams like Texas, Vanderbilt, BYU, and Notre Dame missed out on the CFP.
Don't care. No, I know. Keep it like this. If anything, make it 16 teams and make it a true 1 versus 16.
16 is the 15, cutoff. Whatever. You can't go any more than 16. That's how
people got mad. Listen, people got mad about anything.
People got mad at 12. Yeah.
People got mad at 4.
Right.
People were mad at 4. There's always going to be a vocal minority.
Yeah. At the end of the day, listen, we went from the BCS, which everyone hated because of it's a ranking system. So it's like you're trusting a computer to get it done. And the reason they hate the reason they hate it the 4 is because you're having a committee, break it down. And we all know how the committee is. Like they never get it. They most of the time never get it right.
They got it right this time, though.
I think in the majority they got this one right. I really didn't see much. I think the only gripe I had, maybe A&M should have been ahead of Ole Miss. That's about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I would have seen A&M as a 6 seed. I think that would have been fair.
The reason I say that is because remember what happened to Florida State a couple years ago when they missed out on the college football playoff because they lost their starting quarterback. One of the criterias for the CFP is if a team loses their starting quarterback or any key player or a head coach or coaches, then they're going to evaluate that and make that, use that towards a ranking. They didn't do that with Ole Miss. They just said, okay, listen, they still have the same roster. They just have a new head coach, of course. So we're just going to keep them put at 6. No offense to Ole Miss, but they probably should have fallen at least a spot because A&M again, it's not like their loss was to a bad team. They lost to Texas. Not saying Ole Miss's loss was bad because they lost to Georgia. They both have good losses. The problem is, I think, I don't know. I could be just nitpicking here. That's probably the only thing I think was wrong with the poll. But yeah, it should be an interesting couple of matchups in the first round, and see who gets into the quarterfinals of the CFP. But as I mentioned before, let's go into some coaching news, Johnson, because we still have some coaching carousel news to break down from last week's show. Last week was a insane amount of news that we had go down the show, and we have a couple more head coach hirings being made. And the first one, of course, was probably the biggest one up until what happened yesterday. Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell, now the new head coach at Penn State. So a long, long, wait for the Nittany Lions. They missed out on so many top guys in the college football landscape, and they are able to get probably the best choice available left towards them in getting Matt Campbell from Iowa State, who's done a pretty good job with the Cyclones. He now goes to the Nittany Lions and tries to see if he can salvage anything out of that university.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a good hire. I mean, out of everyone that was left, but he has a long road ahead. Now, I will say the signing class isn't as important in the day of the age of the transfer portal.
Yeah,
So
he'll be active in the portal.
he'll be active in the portal. I'm sure a lot of guys will want to play for him. So it's a good hire given the circumstances right now.
Yeah, if you're Iowa State, they might lose some of their players to Penn
They might
State.
lose half their team.
Yeah, it's very possible that could happen. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't know if we mentioned this last week. I think we didn't. Billy Napier, the new head coach of James Madison, a very interesting hire. Just because of what happened with him at Florida. He now takes over a team that is currently in the college football playoff, and he'll be awaiting to see what happens with James Madison at the end of this college football playoff run. But Napier goes back to an old root because he kind of, we saw what he did at Louisiana, build them up and took the Florida job. Now we'll try to do the same thing with James Madison, continue to try to keep this momentum going for the Dukes and see maybe if he can get back into a higher tier job at the end of the day. So a very bold move by the Dukes. We saw South Florida hiring Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline. He was a very active name going into this coaching carousel. He was linked to Penn State for a numerous amount of weeks, but he goes to South Florida, who, of course, at one point during the season was in their group of 5 talk after they knocked off Florida earlier on the season. Alex Golesh, of course, leaving to go, I'm trying to remember, I think he went to Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. So Hartline, now the new head coach of South Florida, he will coach the Buckeyes offense until the season ends for them. Washington State head coach Jimmy Rogers, he will replace Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell at Iowa State. Texas A&M offensive coordinator Colin Klein will go back to his old school at Kansas State. He made, of course, some big name, had some big games at Kansas State with them when he was a Heisman Trophy finalist back in, I believe, 2012 was the year, if I'm not mistaken. He will go coach the Wildcats after this college football playoff run ends for Texas A&M, so a very interesting hire there. And then Johnson, a very weird situation happened just yesterday in the college football world. Michigan firing head coach Sherrone Moore. The details of it are very...
I can break it down, Nick. I don't mind this.
Okay, yeah, if you want to go for it.
So, have you ever seen like a speed run online, Nick? Like when you speed run a video game?
Uh-huh.
You just watch the grown man speed run how to destroy his entire life.
Yeah. It's a really... I mean, keep in mind, he already had a bad look considering what happened prior with the Kyra Stallions stuff and all that. So his reputation was already not the greatest. And
Listen,
it got even worse.
If it's true, the whole situation is that again, everyone is going to have their day in court. There's his truth, there's her truth, and then there's the actual truth. So there's 3 sides of every story.
Yeah.
So we haven't heard his full story yet, and we haven't heard
Yeah.
her full story yet, but we've heard the third party story, and this is what it is. He was fired for having an affair with a staffer, which she got pregnant, paid for her abortion, gave her a raise to kind of buy her silence. His wife found out, the school found out, he got fired, and then obviously she kicked him out of the house, and then he goes there, he threatens to end his life
And this is at
after he breaks into her house, and then
and
the
this is at the
police is called,
assistant's house, right?
yeah, it's at the
Yes.
assistant's house,
Yes.
and then the police has to be called, and he's arrested hours after
Yeah.
he's fired. So
Yeah.
this is this a colossal spiral. I mean, clearly the affair was real, and this guy was married for a decade. He just threw his whole family down the drain. It's a real
Yeah.
shame, and this is a guy that had his entire life ahead of him in the professional space. This is a guy that just became head coach of Michigan. He probably
Yeah.
had a good 25 years of a sport left based on that alone.
I think he was on the hot seat, but they were going to give him another year. Like he was going to get next season at least to try to fix.
He would have had next season, and if he got fired there, he could have had any other job in the
Right.
country. He
Right.
could have went to any team that would have opened up.
Right.
Any mid-tier team would have hired him. Any upper to mid-tier team, let's say like an Iowa State, would have hired him. Let's say an Ole Miss would have hired him.
Yeah, you never know.
It's crazy, and and the assistant head coach too, or the special assistant, whatever you want to call her. Her life is done too in sports. She wants to be a professional.
Yeah.
That is a giant black cloud that's going to follow you for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
So these are two people that just threw their kind of careers away so early on. Really is a shame.
And I think the other part of this too, and you and I talked about this earlier on in the day, and there still really hasn't been any truth to the rumor yet, but I do want to speculate about it. They apparently Michigan knew about this weeks ago, and I think
this we don't know is true. Again, everything is
this is all speculation.
Speculation.
This is all speculation. This could be a false rumor that we saw on Twitter. You never know what happens with the college football world of Twitter rumors. But the supposed rumor was that Michigan knew about this before the Ohio State game. They were going to wait to see what happened in the result of the Ohio State game. And then once they lost to Ohio State, they were ready to pull the trigger. But then they realized they had to wait till after National Signing Day so that they didn't lose recruits on that day to other schools. So they waited till after the signing day period to get this news out. So again, all speculation. Maybe that didn't happen. For the university's sake, they better pray, or if that did happen, they better pray it doesn't get leaked out. Otherwise, they're going to be in a whirlwind of trouble with sanctions and stuff like that. But yeah, at first when we saw the news that he got fired, we thought maybe it was just because of how the season ended for Michigan, and then it just turned in from one thing to another, and yeah, it kind of went from 0 to 100 in about a 5 to 10 minute span. It felt like. So, yeah, Michigan gonna be in an interesting time period. I believe they already named their assistant head coach Bill. I'm trying to remember his name. Biff Poggi, who was, if you remember, an interim for 2 games this past season for Michigan when Sharon was suspended for, I believe, recruiting violations. So Poggi will be the interim head coach for the time being. He'll probably, if I had to guess, he probably will get the season to be the Michigan head coach, and then they'll probably evaluate what he does during the year. If it's good, then he'll say they have full-time head coach. If he does not do good, then they'll do a full-fledged recruiting process to see who becomes the new head coach. But that, despite all these allegations, Johnson, it's still a very attractive job. So it's going to be one that's going to be very, very noteworthy to see who would take it, depending on what happens in the next couple months with this university.
I guess only time will tell, but I think if you don't have anything else, Nick, that's going to lead us straight into our mushing hour.
Let's go into the mushing hour.
And I'll kick us off.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a lot of bowl games, and we have the utmost honor of presenting this tradition once again, Army-Navy, which is going to be the standalone game for Week 15, I guess, or Week 16, excuse me. And it's Army-Navy. Navy 6.5-point favorite. 38.5 is the over/under.
Navy going for a 10-win season this year to get the job done.
I'm going to take Navy to cover here. Navy minus 6.5 because I don't think they'll lose.
Is this game at MetLife or is it MT&T? It's in Baltimore. I just saw it.
It's in
Because some,
Baltimore. 'Cause
I
if it was in
remember
MetLife,
they,
I would have known.
I remember it was in Baltimore for a bit, and then for some reason it went to MetLife Stadium. I think like for 2 seasons. I couldn't remember why. So I was trying to see if it went back to Baltimore. But anyway, all that being said, uh, I'll take Army to cover the 6.5. Why not? Why not? I expect a very competitive game. It's a rivalry game. Those always seem to be very close between these two teams. So give me Army to cover 6.5 in that special matchup. And then, Johnson, before we go into our first round matchups of the college football playoff, let's break down some of the other big time bowl games happening between some ranked teams in this bowl season. We kick things off with number 22 Georgia Tech taking on number 12 BYU. I will get you the name of that bowl game in just a second. For the time being, it's BYU minus 4.5. 56.5 is the over under for this game.
Ooh, this is a tough one. I think we're gonna take Georgia Tech to cover here. BYU doesn't have a single
Pop-Tarts
impressive
Bowl.
win to
How
make.
can I forget this Pop Tarts Bowl?
It's gonna be a classic down in Orlando.
That game is in Orlando. Yes, Camping World
Yeah,
Stadium.
Camping World Stadium. It's gonna be a classic. Formerly the Cheez-Its Bowl. Now the
Yeah,
Pop Tart
formerly
Bowl.
the Cheeses Bowl.
So give me
Be a
Georgia
good
Tech to
send off
cover
for
here.
Haynes King. It's gonna be his final collegiate game if he's able to play. I'm pretty sure. So
I can't believe I saw him play for A&M 5 years ago now.
I know,
That's
I know.
crazy.
I know. Yeah, his good. I'm sure. He's gonna play in this game. I don't think he has any injury designation, so he'll get to go for the Yellow Jackets. I'll go with BYU to cover the 4.5. It sucks for them because obviously they had a very strong season. Any other year they could have potentially made the college football playoff, but just a lot of really good teams this season made it ahead of them. So I'll take the Cougars to cover the 4.5. It's kind of like a revengeful way for them to get the job done in that matchup against the Yellow Jackets in the Pop Tarts Bowl. What's our next bowl game we have?
We got number 23 Iowa versus number 14 Vandy.
The
Vandy, five and a
Reliant
half point
Bowl.
favorite. 46.5 is the slated over under. Give me Vandy to cover here. Vandy minus 5.5.
I want to see Diego Pavia go out with a bang. This is gonna be his last collegiate game too, probably, unless he decides to skip it. But I don't see him skipping it. I think he's gonna want to play this game for sure. So give me Vanderbilt minus 5.5 as well in that matchup. And going into our next matchup, Johnson, we just talked about this team. They're in a very interesting and weird time period right now. But it is number 18 Michigan taking on number 13 Texas in the aforementioned Cheez-It Bowl. I know how much you love this bowl game. Texas minus 7.5, 46.5 is the over-under.
Well, I think it's Texas minus 7.5 because this is a program in disarray. Like, I can't knowingly pick Michigan right now.
Yeah, it's really tough to pick them right now. Just a lot of controversy going around them right now at the point. And Texas, at least, I will say this: if Texas had played like this at the beginning of the season, they would have been in the college football playoff. But they had so many big mishaps throughout the first half of that year. That's why they're not in. But this is the team that we were expecting this entire season. So I think that's why another reason why I want to take them in this game too. So I'll take Texas as well, minus 7.5. Then, Johnson, we get our first college football playoff matchup in our first round matchup. Why don't you break it down?
Yeah, we have number 12 versus number 5, I guess, technically. No, it's
This is number 11 versus number 6.
number 11 versus number 6, excuse me, in terms of those rankings. Number 20 in the AP poll for Tulane and number 6 for Ole Miss in the AP poll.
Yes. I should have put that I should have put that for you in the prep sheet. I apologize for that.
Tulane versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss has a home game. With all the rumors and everything going around, all the coaching turbulence that both these programs are facing, give me Tulane plus 17.5 because their head coach wants to go out of a bang there. So give me Tulane to cover here. I think it's too many points.
I mean, these are two teams with currently. I mean, one team already lost their head coach, and the other team's about to lose their head coach once the season ends. I mean, we saw this matchup earlier in the season. I took Tulane to cover that matchup earlier in the year. You would think that they're going to have a different game plan for this matchup. I unfortunately just can't. I just don't see it right now. I'm going to take Ole Miss minus 17.5. It's a road game too. You got to remember These first round matchups are all at the campuses of the home team. So this game will be in Oxford. Going to be a really tough environment for the Green Wave to go into. They already had to face this environment earlier in the year. I'll take the Rebels to cover the 17.5 and move on to take on, I believe, I'm trying to think. They would take on Georgia in the second round of the college football playoff. So I'll take Ole Miss in that matchup. Our next matchup is the 12-5 matchup in the first round. It's number 24, James Madison at number 5, Oregon. Oregon, 21.5 point favorite. 50.5 is the over-under.
JMU to cover. JMU plus 21.5. They're hungry here. Oregon will win, but JMU will cover.
You know what? I'm getting a bad feeling of, Johnson. Remember a couple years ago when Oregon played Liberty in a New Year's Six bowl, and we both thought Liberty could cover that game. I don't
I'm
know
not
how
sure.
much you remember that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
It was a couple of years ago, and I loved Liberty that season they were having because it was tied at what James Madison and Tulane have had this year. A Cinderella run. They had a really, strong offense going, and then they play an Oregon team, and Oregon just bounces them. And that was in a neutral site game. This game is going to be in Eugene, Oregon. It's a night game, too, for James Madison on the road. I don't like their chances, unfortunately. I got the Ducks 21.5 in this matchup. I don't know if they're going to keep it close. What's our next matchup?
We have Alabama versus Oklahoma, number 9 versus number 8 here. Oklahoma's 1.5 point favorite, 4.5 is the slated over under. I'm taking Alabama to cover here, and you know what struck me on Sunday, Nick?
What struck you on Sunday?
When I saw their Crimson Tide A come up on the screen, It doesn't strike fear in the heart of their opponents anymore like it used to 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, you could make that case.
Like, remember when Notre Dame had to play Alabama? Was it last year or 2 years ago? A couple of years ago, right? The 4-team system.
That was that the 4-team system?
It was, and Notre Dame fans were panicked. They were furious that they had to play Alabama.
I'm trying to remember what year that was. Continue though with your.
So it doesn't really strike fear in the hearts of players anymore, and it's kind of sad because it's like
oh yeah,
the end of an era.
21.
Yeah, it was 4 years ago.
I forgot about that game.
Because Alabama, the tide was rolling. That's why.
Well, I thought initially when you said that, I thought you were talking about the national championship game when Bama destroyed them when that was the whole Manti Te'o year.
No, this is like a couple of years ago. But
okay,
remember the Notre Dame fans being furious because they thought they'd get like a 3 seed to kind of avoid this that beating. But anyway, give me Alabama to cover here, plus 1.5. Oklahoma, great team. I think Alabama will win this game.
Well, you gotta remember what happened the last time these two teams played. That was in Tuscaloosa, and Oklahoma went on the road, and that was the reason why they're in this spot right now. They don't win that game, they're not in the college football playoff. But because they won that game in Tuscaloosa, they got themselves into this spot. Now they have a home game in Norman. They beat Alabama last year in Norman, and I think the problem for these two teams is, Johnson, I think that's why a lot of people aren't too high on this game, is that both of these teams offensively the last couple of weeks have looked really, really bad. That's why the total is low. I expect it to be a low-scoring game, but I'm with you on Alabama as well. I think Bama gets the revenge. They end that 2-game skid, and they move on to take on Indiana in the second round of the college football playoffs. So give me the Tide plus 1.5 in that matchup. And then the matchup of the first round, in my opinion, I think you would agree with this matchup as well. It's the 10 versus 7 matchup. Number 10 Miami, number 7 Texas A&M. Texas A&M 3.5 point favorite. 51.5 is the over/under. The winner will take on Ohio State in the quarterfinals of the college football playoff.
Gig 'em. A&M minus 3.5.
I'm with you. I don't want to mush you, and I would like for you guys to get the win. I will go Texas A&M minus 3.5 in this matchup too. Miami, I think they're just very grateful they got here because I think once they lost that game to SMU, they thought they were done. At least I also thought they were done. They played a lot better towards the end, and I think a good thing for A&M is they haven't played since the Texas game. That game has to be stemming and really rotting at the fact that they lost that matchup. They're going to want some revenge. This game isn't Kyle Field. This was the one problem I had with this college football playoff. Now that I'm glad that we brought this up, why is this a 12 o'clock kickoff?
I'm not sure, but I'm not gonna
This
complain.
should have been the night game instead of James Madison and Oregon. I
I'm
could
not
not
gonna.
believe.
I'm gonna take time and watch it, so doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Listen, I'm going to watch it. I just could not believe this wasn't the night game. It makes so much sense for this to be a night game. But I digress. Texas A&M -3.5. I'm with you on that matchup as well. As I mentioned, the winner of that game will take on Ohio State in the second round of the college football playoff. So there you have it. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Mushing Hour. Just a couple mushing hours left for us, Johnson, in the season. Before we wrap up tonight, I was looking. I do remember what I was looking up. I wanted to see when the Heisman Trophy was going to be announced, and I want to see what the date is for that. Because if the date's coming up, we probably should make a pick real quick to see who we think is going to win it. Let me see if I can find the date. I
I
think
mean, it's gonna be Mendoza. That's my pick.
it's more than likely going to be
Mendoza's my pick.
Mendoza.
It's.
Yeah,
I mean, Love probably
December. Oh
deserves it
yeah,
over
it's literally
Mendoza.
it's Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
mean,
Saturday.
listen, Jeremiah Love deserves it way more than Mendoza, but
So close. I was so close. He wasn't my pick, obviously. He was my long shot pick, but I thought I could pull it off again. But yeah, the finalists are Love, Mendoza, Pavia, and Sayin. It's probably going
wait,
to be Mendoza.
it's not Lenore Sellers and Kate Klubnik. What happened? I just woke up out of a
It's not.
coma from August of this year.
It's not Arch Manning.
No, come on.
You telling me Penn State, Texas, and Clemson aren't playing in the college football playoff this season?
No. LSU made it too, right?
Yeah, LSU, right? Of course.
Wow, cool.
Well, I will recap quickly our picks for the preseason. I think we both had 5 correct.
We did.
Yeah.
5 isn't bad.
5 for
It's
each
under
of us.
50%, but
Yes.
you know.
Some very bad picks from us. I mean, we both took Clemson. We both took Penn State.
Yeah.
Notre Dame also missing out just
Those are
by
also
a
like
hair.
universal picks by everyone,
Yeah,
though. So like
LSU, of course, another
Clemson,
universal pick. You took your shot at Boise State as the group of 5. I don't blame you there. South Carolina was an interesting pick. I'll say that. But in fairness, I took Michigan, so I really shouldn't.
yeah.
I really should give you a slack for that.
And I really swung the Fort Fences with Colorado.
I mean, in fairness, the Big 12 and I didn't fault you for that because I felt like anyone could have won that conference. I got lucky that Texas Tech was one of those teams. I just thought that Utah was going to win the conference because I liked Devin Dampier, but the Red Raiders at least got at least were one of my 5 teams where I were correct. So
Yeah, the one thing I couldn't understand was picking 2 Big 12 teams. So like, you know what? I can only pick one. It was just too much.
And funny enough, it almost happened in real life. The problem was it wasn't
Almost.
Utah and Texas Tech; it was BYU and Texas Tech. But yeah, almost is not enough. That's all I'll say for that. But yeah, any final thoughts, Johnson, before we wrap this one up and get ready for the first round of the college football playoff? I'll mention real quick those matchups right now. The Bama and Oklahoma game is going to start the first round of the playoff. That's on Friday, December 19th, so next Friday. And then the other 3 matchups in the first round will be on December 20th. So once those matchups conclude, we will recap those matchups and then break down the second round matchups of the college football playoffs. So around the week, just a couple of days before Christmas, we will break down those matchups if we have time to do so, of course, with the holidays coming up. But other than that, Johnson, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Got about what 6 weeks left of football, and then we're
Just
done.
about.
At least with college.
When's the
And
national
that's it.
championship? Oh, you're saying in general, yeah. When is the national championship game itself, like date? The 13th, am I right?
It is the 19th.
19th, close.
So
Yeah,
so 5 weeks. Oof.
Yeah, it's crazy because I felt like just yesterday we just started our preview of the season.
And here we are 16 weeks later.
We are right at the end of the college football season. The NFL season is also winding down too. Make sure to listen to our latest episode from yesterday as we broke down the previous week in the NFL season. But yeah, it's crazy. We're almost getting close to the playoffs in the NFL, and now we're here in the playoffs and the postseason for college football. So I'm looking forward to seeing how all this unfolds, and will we see some potential big time upsets of those group of 5 teams pull off their wins in their respective first round matchups? That would be something. But there's no other final thoughts, Johnson. Let's wrap this one up. Hit me with that hit me with that outro song. There it is. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The college football playoff is here. We are now down to the final 12 teams in this college football playoff season. It is going to be Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama. Then you have Miami, James Madison, and Tulane, I should say, and then James Madison. Those are the 12 teams that will be competing in the college football playoff, and we'll see who gets to win the national championship at the end of this season. For Nicholas Pavone and Andrew Johnson, this has been the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.